Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world.
So welcome everyone to this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. So I have another very exciting guest for you today. And today I have Anthony Garone. And Anthony is the founder of Edify Content. Difficult one to say that, Edify Content, helping B2B tech companies build sales and marketing content that their teams need to win. And I really wanted to bring Anthony onto the podcast today because I know a number of you are in sometimes the tech space, a lot of you scaling companies. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we all have within our businesses is how do we articulate what we do to our audience? And Anthony is a master at helping us with that. So Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Julia. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to your listeners.
I always start with, how did you get to where you are today? Because I've worked in tech companies. When I was in corporate, I had a tech SaaS division that I was running. And I totally resonate with the problem that you're solving for people. So how did it come about for you that you realized that this was your kind of superpower to distill this information for people?
After 20 years of working in the business, there's a sense of boredom or maybe complacency. But that's not truly my story. COVID did happen, and that had an influence as well. But it all was leading to this one point where I did decide to leave normal life. And as you wrote in your own biography, you found yourself unemployable. And I was absolutely just not employable. People did not enjoy hiring me, and I did not enjoy being hired. What it really came down to was I listened to a podcast by a guy named Naval Ravikant. And he said something like, your superpower is the thing that you're so good at you don't even realize it. And as an IT and software development leader, I never would have guessed writing was it. But I was a good writer, and people just kept asking me to do writing things, or I would write up project plans and mission statements and this kind of thing. And finally, the company I worked for, we got acquired for $500 million, which was crazy. And the head of content at this big company that bought us, he asked me to write a couple of things, and I turned the assignments around in a day. And he said, how long did it take you to write this? And he said, this is so good. Can I give you more work? And I said, yeah, sure. So I did another one in the next few days, and then another. And he's like, this is the best content we've ever gotten. And it takes me 6 weeks to get this kind of content out of an executive. And I said, I'll just write for the executives. And so just tell me what you want written. And so I did some of that too. And then it clicked, like months later, that's the thing I'm really good at. So then COVID happened, and I was like a sales architect or solutions architect, sales engineer type. And when COVID happened, face-to-face sales stopped.
Yeah.
And so how do you sell? You can't sell through the website when all the content stinks. And that's when I realized, oh, there's an opportunity here. If people need to use websites to sell software, and I'm good at writing quickly technical things that seem to be good, I should go all in on this. And so that's what happened in 2020. A few months after COVID, quit my job, started a writing company with a friend of mine who was also at the company that got acquired. And she was with me for a few years, but I'm still doing it now. And yeah, we have a team of people and we've worked with like 100 different companies over the 5 years. And
wow.
We do long-term stuff and then one-off project type stuff.
You don't know it, and all of a sudden it just shows up through a number of circumstances there where the executive gave you the opportunity to write, and then you realize. And I think that's what it's so great. And I think as leaders, we've got to remember that this is why we need to keep giving our team members great opportunities to do things, because there might be one of them in your team, right? In the listeners' teams is an amazing writer, but nobody knows because they've never been given the opportunity.
Yeah, and I find as I've led teams around the world for several companies, I've hired hundreds of people and then I've coached and mentored them. And you find out, like, hey, Jake, did you know you're actually, like, you're a good software developer, but did you know you're an excellent leader of this, or you're really good at writing this kind of thing or speaking to people? And then Jake would be like, no, I never really thought about it. So I think it's good as a leader to look at your employees or your team as a real group of humans who are just trying to figure things out, because most people don't want a job. They don't show up to work thinking, this is my superpower, this is my calling. But they're doing it anyway because who you are and what you are, really, what you are is far more important. That comes through in your day-to-day. And that's when if you pay attention, that's when you realize that's what you're awesome at. That's what your innate gifts are. And that's the thing to pursue, or at least figure out how to harness in the thing that you're doing at work so that you can be incredibly successful.
It was interesting because I was just talking with somebody earlier on today, and we were talking about exactly this, about how important it is actually for leaders to develop what we call social capital, building all these relationships with their team members, finding out what their team members do outside of work, because often team members have got these amazing skill sets that they've left at home, for want of a better word, and that we could use in the organization if only we had those conversations.
Yeah, bring the whole person to work. And it's not like we as employers should demand that. No. It's an opportunity and a gift to say, hey, I recognize you're really good at this. Tell me more. And it builds the human side of the relationship. So what is the point of assuming they're going to be there forever? Really, you should be saying, hey, I want to help you be ready for your next job. Yeah. And I think that involves understanding what you're good at across the board. I don't need to know everything about your personal life, but there's going to be stuff that you're so good at that I'd love to help bring out more of. And if you really enjoy it, let's figure out a way to make it valuable for our company and for the work that we do.
Yeah. And I love that you talk about authenticity, because that's something we talk about a lot on the podcast, because it's the key to everything. And I remember in the old corporate days, right, Anthony, when, I used to go into, I put on my little suit, my little stiletto heels, and there I go into work, and this is work Julia, and then home Julia comes around and she's in her jeans and her cowboy boots. And it was almost like, I say I'm a bit schizophrenic. I'm like two personalities, right? And that's what I love about having my own business. I've been able to bring all of me together with the horse work, with the corporate stuff, and blend it together and show up as Julia. But I think as leaders, we have a real obligation that we want to do that for our team members, so they don't feel like I did a little bit in corporate.
Yeah, and not just the way that you're describing it, but we have an obligation to model it and to show people, hey, this is not only acceptable, this is expected. Bring who you are, because we're better with your whole person here. Yeah. Instead of you bringing just this kind of version of yourself, that's not truly who you wish that you were 8 hours, 10 hours a day. And I think I've been able to build my teams have always had much higher retention than industry average. Not because I'm some special leader, but because I truly love my teams. And I love you and I want you to be who you are and I want you to enjoy your life. I'm not here to crack the whip on your back or something, although sometimes that is part of my job. But for the most part, I just want you to be good at what you do, and we should share expectations, and then we get along through those expectations and we perform when we need to perform.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I know when we were talking before we came on air that you do a lot of high performance coaching. And with leaders, is authenticity one of the things that you find is holding a lot of those leaders back?
No. I think what holds leaders back is their inability to be authentic. So they get ideas of what it means to be a leader, and then they forget about authenticity. No. It's almost like they don't consider the impact of playing the role of the leader on the business, when in reality, most of their problems are because they are playing a role instead of doing what is required. Yeah. And so there's a big difference between I'm the CEO and I run a successful company. Because the CEO, once you say I'm CEO, there is like connotation for that, and there's weight, and there's also some implication that there are things that you don't do. And a lot of leaders, they bring along with them what is unnecessary, and they don't see it as the things that slow them down. And so one of my favorite stories regarding this is Michelangelo's carving of the statue of David. And there's this sort of mythical story that someone asked him, how did you carve David out of this ugly piece of marble? And he said, it was easy. I just carved away everything that wasn't David. And I think leaders don't understand what isn't them. They just like throw this stuff on their bodies, and then they're like, look how great I am. Look at me, the founder, the CEO. I showed up, look at my headshot. Instead of realizing nobody cares. You know, nobody cares about that. What they care about is, can you help me solve my problem?
Yeah.
Am I going to find value in what you do and what you deliver to me? Like those are the things that matter to the people on the other side.
Yeah.
And leaders are often, I wouldn't even say it's a question of authenticity. It's more of a question of adding, like via positiva instead of subtracting, which is via negativa. And the best things you can do are to subtract from your life, because by the time you're a CEO or a founder, you have too much going on in your life.
It is so interesting, isn't it, this concept of subtraction, because we're recording this, everyone, at the beginning of 2026, and most of us have sat down and written our plans and what we're going to do for 2026. And how many of us have added to that list, right? Rather than strategically sat down and go, what do I need to release this year that I'm not taking into 2026? That things that have no longer been serving me. And we get a habit, don't we, of we've always done this, so we'll keep doing this, and actually not really stepping back and critically evaluating, has that got value for our target audience or not? Do they even want this feature that we've built into this product or this new service that we're offering? So how do you help leaders navigate that and figure out what are the things that are adding value to their end user?
I ask some pointed questions, but my favorite question is, how is that working for you? Because I'll be on a call with a leader and they will go on for 10 minutes about this thing that they're doing. And then I'll just say, oh, how's that working for you? And then that gets to the truth of it, because sometimes they'll say, it's not working. And I'm like, okay, that's the start of a real conversation. Yeah. You're frustrated that nobody cares about it, and you don't even know why. You're thinking, I built this thing that is self-evidently great. Why are people not into it? Instead of, how do I make someone care? How's that working for you is just a really simple question about metrics, and if you're measuring anything. Because leaders often don't measure anything. They just assume the world loves them and wishes to adore them and lay all of our money at their feet, which is a little bit twisted. But I find that many leaders, they get so caught up in their own success or prior success. I was this at this other company. I developed this. And then it's your company makes no money. Your employees are unhappy. Nobody cares about the new AI feature you just rolled out. And your numbers are tanking. How's that working for you? And it's all tied up in reality. I just call it reality. You have your reality distortion field that you see with leaders. It's no, everything's great. They'll tell you how great everything is, and then you ask, how is it working for you? And that's when you find out, actually, we have 12 months of runway left, and we have to solve this problem. Our pipeline is empty. We have no leads. We have no results. So that's really where I start going in those initial early conversations. But I think it's good for a leader to just look at what they do day to day and go, how's this working for me? I've been doing this for a year, this particular thing. Is that working? I made YouTube videos for 6 months and they all get 12 views. How's that working for me?
Mm-hmm.
It's fine if you enjoy doing it, but if it's not producing the return on the investment, then why are you spending all of this time doing something that nobody cares about, that you haven't figured out how to bridge the gap between nobody cares and lots of people care? So it's how is it working for you is one of my favorite questions when it comes to this kind of discovery work.
So let me ask you a question related to that then, because when we listen to all the gurus out there, they're like, never quit, keep going. And when do you decide in that example that only getting 12 views on your YouTube channel for 6 months, now it's time to call quits? And when do you make the decision, I just have to keep going because I'm going to learn some more stuff and then it's going to get better? Because I think this is a real issue that leaders grapple with all the time, is when it is a point of you need to close it down because it's hemorrhaging the business, versus it just needs time to come to fruition.
I think it's just a bunch of nonsense.
Okay.
You know who loves you to keep going? Your chiropractor. The SaaS you're paying for. Keep going, you need us. Like, you're just a pile of recurring revenue for a bunch of other people. So of course they want you to keep going.
Yeah.
Your coach wants you to keep going. Why would you end this relationship? We're doing so well. What are you doing for me? My numbers haven't changed, except that I'm paying you $6,000 a month. What am I getting out of it? Our numbers haven't gone up, and I've given you 12 months of income. For what? But just keep going. We can grind through this. To me, it's just a whole bunch of nonsense, and people just aren't serious. They don't get serious about who they are and what they do. And the moment I find a serious person it's a light bulb, a eureka moment for me. Even company leaders, like, you can fart in the wind and sell a business, and that makes $1 million a year. It's not like it's hard to start a business. It's not hard to run a business. It's hard to authentically build a business, something that you are passionate about. A lot of leaders find themselves accidentally successful. I built this thing and I just didn't expect it to take off like this. And they think the money and the notoriety is the result of intentional effort and being serious about life. And then they get this sort of false sense of confidence. And the reality is you're in the right place at the right time. And good for you. I don't begrudge anyone for that. But don't call it magical. Don't say you are the cause of this success. Why? What could happen? For 6 months, you got 12 views a week. What do you think next week you'll get 5,000? What is the plan here? You're not going to strike like a viral moment. As someone who does YouTube myself, I tell people when I look at their channels, I say, here's what you're not doing right. And I'll tell you 5% of them change what they're doing after that conversation. I'll have literally 10,000 times more subscribers than they do. And they don't listen. Yeah. And you're just not serious. You're caught up in your own reality distortion field. And so that's where a lot of my coaching starts with, are you a serious person? How can you become serious? And they don't really even know what that means. They don't know what a serious life looks like. So that's when people say, just keep grinding, I just say, you're not a serious person, because that's not a reasonable thing to do. Or actually... It is the reasonable thing to do, and I think people are wrong to be reasonable. They choose safety over danger, and danger has a payoff. Safety is just slow death. You're preserving a corpse. What's the point of this? Do you want to live a good life? If you want to live a good life, you have to be unreasonable. I think most of the business wisdom out there and the gurus, I think it's just total nonsense, and it just sells books. And it just gives people the good feeling of knowledge without actually having to do anything, which is why people get angry about Trump and the things that he's doing, but they don't give actual money or time or energy towards the causes that they supposedly care about, because it's easier to write a social media post about something you hate than to actually give hours per week and dollars and all of this. I think that's just representation of how the world works. Reasonable people operate in the world, which is the majority, including leaders.
So with that in mind, I know that you have a music channel. You've got your logo behind you. So you're somebody who has identified and managed to identify within your work business, for want of a better word. Your zone of genius is writing and copy and helping simplify and add value to people to sell their products and services. But then you've also got, and you alluded to your YouTube channel there, an amazing YouTube channel in your music business. So just tell us a little bit about that and what you've learned from having your, I don't even want to call it a side hustle because it seems like it's way more than that. How did you meld them all together?
I never would have thought that a niche channel about esoteric music that's largely unpleasant would end up with more than 200 subscribers, but here we are with 6 million views and
Wow.
44,000 subscribers. The world is a lot bigger than I thought. And yeah, this channel has really blown up. Although it's slow organic growth. I've done nothing to pay to promote. I think people just see I'm authentically interested in odd music and odd musicians in particular. I love creativity. I write books even if they don't sell. I don't really care. I write music because it's who I am. It's in my nature.
Yeah.
And so I understand what I am and the way that my DNA works. And so these things are just natural manifestations of it. So being unemployable means you're going to have to spend all your time with your horses. You're going to have to spend time mentoring people and building a podcast and all these things because it's who you are. Like it's the reflection of your like activation in the world. And so I think about when people say, how do you do all of this? To me, it's, I wouldn't be able to live in a world where this wasn't happening. This is the way the world needs to be. And I am doing everything that I can to make it that way for the benefit of others. The more I benefit, the more I can give, the more fruit that I bear that benefits other people in the world. So that's how I look at it. And the music channel is purely charitable because I have artists on there who have no right to have a following. and I just love shining a light on them. And I always say the more subscribers we get, the bigger and brighter the light gets that we can shine on strange musicians who are doing interesting, creative, authentic things. They're pursuing art in a world that increasingly devalues art. So we're here to make sure that art stays alive through music.
And what I love about what you shared there was all this link back to authenticity, because actually everything you're doing is, you said, part of your DNA, right? So you're showing up authentically as you. And look how interesting it is. People are magnetized towards that. You've got 40,000 followers. And I think we underestimate our magnetic presence that we can create in the world by just showing up as us. And particularly in a world where you're not really sure. Yeah, we are real people. In a world where there is so much fake news, fake personas, people have there's fake Julia doing a podcast, or this authenticity, I think, is becoming more and more important in order to form genuine connections with people.
Yeah, in a world that's going to be increasingly driven by nonsense, AI, people using AI for this fake personalization, what could be more necessary as an antidote than really being yourself and putting your true self out there? Now, that's not to say I definitely believe in orthodox behaviors. There's a difference between doing weird creative things and being a weirdo. Like, we don't want to embrace weirdos, but like, on the other hand, we are all weird. We are all doing things that on the surface make no sense. If you're starting a company, that's crazy. You have to be at least a little bit insane to do that. So I just think, what is it about that insanity? And that's my job as a coach. Let's bring out that insanity. Let's really foster it and figure out what that is in your DNA, because there's really a calling there. And the fact that you start a company and that you keep going with the company, especially when it makes no money, especially when you're barely scraping by or losing thousands of dollars a month or more, there's something there that this is necessary. I may not be doing it right, but this is necessary. And then once you figure out how to do the thing that is necessary, then you've got a calling, and you just have to listen and figure it out. But people don't listen. They just get really distracted.
I always think there's a lesson in everything that happens. And I love that quote, be yourself because everyone else is taken. Because there is only one of everyone.
Yes.
Too often we're like, oh, I need to behave like this or do this. I did. I've made some investments that didn't work in my business. But there's always been something that if you're, and this is important, that you're open to it, to learn from it. I always believe that things happen for a reason. Some amazing things happened. I got into some debt and I ended up moving, and now I live on a property with my horses. That was always my dream. So out of what happened, I wouldn't have been here now if that hadn't happened. All of these things, I always think there's a gift in there for us to learn and see the magic of if we're open to it. And what I do know to be true is if you don't learn it, then you get the same lesson back again and again and again.
And people have said to me, like, can you miss your calling? Because that's a big thing in my mind, that you have a calling. Why else would you have this unique opportunity, this unique DNA? And I think, no, you might have missed earlier versions of it, but like, why would the universe or God stop asking you to do what you are supposed to do?
Yep.
Why would that happen? And it's really not an issue of, is this what I'm meant to do? It's an issue of, have I subtracted enough from my life that I can hear my calling? And that's where the issue is that I find, even with just basic business ownership, you can say it's not a spiritual thing, but that's absolutely ridiculous to believe. But if you believe it's a spiritual thing, that you're doing something extraordinarily difficult for no real good reason, and you've got to let go of all these unnecessary things and really get to the core of, why am I doing this? And if it's something that someone else planted, my neighbor just bought this new car and he's got a $50,000 SUV in the driveway and I'm driving a $6,000 used Kia. I want the SUV. So that's where I think people need to realize, like, when subtracting from your life, you are able to actually hear what you need to hear, what is being told to you through signs and wonders and miracles and all of this. And we experience this, those who have the ears open and their eyes open, we see and hear it every day. We see confirmation and we see no's, we see opportunities and boulders, things to climb over, doors to open, doors to shut, whatever. However you want to look at it, it's all there every day. You're never going to miss your calling unless you've got your fingers in your ears or your head where it doesn't shine.
Okay, so Anthony, I'm just conscious of the time. So what would be one nugget of information or something you'd like to share with the audience before we close this down?
I think I would just like for more people to think about whether they are serious. And if your viewers are doing something that's hard, why is that? And is that enough? Is that what you want out of your life? Because I think like a reasonable life is, like I said, it's like a death sentence. I think I'm writing a new book called Reject the Reasonable Life.
Excellent.
And I think that there's just so much that the world needs and receives when we are unreasonable. So I just want to leave people with that kind of parting thought.
So our parting thought is be unreasonable. I love that. So Anthony, if people want to get hold of you, what's the best way to connect with you? How would you like to do that?
Don't.
I'm unreasonable.
No, I just search my name. I feel bad for the other Anthony Garones in the world who have no SEO presence, and I've completely dominated the space.
Right. Okay.
Google and you'll find me.
Okay, and we'll put Anthony's contact details for LinkedIn and his website on the show notes. Anthony, thank you so much for the conversation today. Wasn't the way I was expecting this was going to go, but that's what I love about doing these, because we end up having some amazing conversations and you know, what happens when you're in the moment and it's unscripted, things appear. So I love the thought of being unreasonable. Ladies and gentlemen listening today, I encourage you to be unreasonable this week and see what happens. Anthony, once again, thank you so much for your time. And for everyone else, we shall catch you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
everyone.
Leah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favourite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and at Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today?